Well, I ran these the other day. I'll probably put that up on video. Couple of interesting things. First, on the G372XT, I kind of fixed its sticky throttle situation, and then I had to go retune it. So you saw me go through that process. What this one here is a G372X torque, where I gutted the intake manifold, the intake side of the cylinder, and the filter holder the way I do. It has a base gasket, and I replaced the rubber gasket that was on the muffler side with a OEM gasket. It has an OEM ignition system, an OEM tank handle, because I didn't like that squarish one that came with it. So this one here is sort of a blend, but it actually turned into a very, very nice running saw. Now here's the gamble, is can you blend some of the aftermarket with some of the OEM to come up with a useful saw for a professional? That's the game right here. And right now, the answer is yes. Its performance and the way it runs and operates actually makes it a useful tool even in the professional world. The question that we're trying to answer over this next year is, I want to run it for a little bit because I just like it, but it's going back, and they're going to run it for the rest of the year, and we'll see if it survives. Because if it does, that opens up a whole new series of questions about, can I get these as a starting point, you know, the G372X torques as a starting point, and then modify them for a reasonable amount of money, put them in a real work environment, and have a person be able to make money with them, and do that for less cost than, say, buying a new OEM 572 or steel 462. You know, instead of spending $1,000, do it for $400. With what I want to work on today is something completely different. And I know I'm a saw channel, but even I have to have fun sometimes. And what you're going to see over the next series of videos is just that. I'm going to mix in a blending of actual work saws, like I always do, with saws that I want to work on, but also things that I want to work on. In this case here, I just want to lube up this reel because I'm going to go out and try to catch a fish with it. And I really don't have good reel lube, but what I do have is WD-40. So let me just see what I can do with this. I think the first thing I have to do is remove that. This is a Daiwa ultralight reel, and this is the one that I had purchased when I was a preteen, or maybe just a soon-to-be teenager. And it's a Daiwa 7250 HRLA. That's what it says on the side. It says it has a ball bearing. Now, I've used this reel for years and years and years and years. I think it needs a little bit of oil in there. I'll just put some light WD-40 in that. And let me see what it looks like on the inside. I'm not going to do a total, clean. I just want to run it today. And it needed a little bit of lubrication. What it really needs is a light oil, and I really don't have one. Now these old vintage reels, I think I'm going to do an overview they were built rugged. This was before they did the polymers and stuff like that. These were all die-cast aluminum reels. During the late 60s into the 70s, there was a variety of Japanese companies like Daiwa and Shimano that really came out with some extremely well designed and well executed, fishing reels. The Daiwa was the brand that I selected because I could afford them, but they were really well designed. They were really solid. Like this one has proven for decades, right? Yeah. It needs a little bit of grease. There's its little clicker. I don't know if I want to take that out. Look at that thing. Well, maybe I will put a little bit of grease on it. It's all plain bearings. I see the ball bearings underneath here. But for the most part, this is all plain bearing. Here, let me see if I can bring the camera over so you can get a good look. Very simple. Plain bearings that obviously have not wore out, so I'm going to put grease on those. And there's a ball bearing underneath there, under the spool. And to those people who say you have to have a bunch of ball bearings, here's proof that you don't, because it'll still catch a fish. And it has lasted, well, what, almost 40 years? And when I had it as a kid, I used it all the time. I mean, I use this thing all the time. Just love this thing. My parents used to send me to Alabama, and I used to go down there and cut. I'll do fence work and cut pulpwood. So after greasing this, kind of an interesting little construction. You've got the gear right down in here, which operates having this spool go back and forth, right? I'll make sure there's some oil down in there for that. And then to put it back together, you got to make sure that the clicker, if you just set the cover right down on the gear, the clicker is not going to be on the right side of this main gear right here. So you've got to assemble it up here first. This shaft here, this brass shaft, has got like a flat spot so that little gear can sit on there. So you got to kind of put it together this way and then set that down inside, and then it'll go right together. And then put the screws back in. Now my big old clumsy hands, it's cold, so it's not as easy for me as it is for some of you younger folks. Magically, it's very smooth now. With that grease, it doesn't make quite as much noise. I'm going to go fishing with this stupid thing. See if I can't catch a fish. And since my camera tipped over, I have another Daiwa I'm going to go through. It's essentially the same. And try to do a better job because my camera tipped. Alright, so here's a bigger one. Untangle this a little bit. Get the spool right off it. There's a drag. Yeah, see, it's all wrapped up in there. Can't lose these little washers. But I do have to get rid of all this stuff in here, get it out from being wrapped up in there. Yeah, got that out of there. Let's see if we can get some lubrication into that bearing. Alright, let's try this again. See if we can't come up with a better video of the Daiwa reel. So this is just another Daiwa. This is a 735 instead of the 725. Basically same design, just a little bit bigger. And just as rugged. Same thing, it's got the one screw that holds the handle together. It slides right out the same way. So you can put this on either side, which is kind of cool, right? And while we're here, we're going to kind of wipe it down. Get the dust off this darn thing. And I haven't decided if I'm going to run this reel or not, but we might. But these old Daiwas are just rugged. You know, they may not be all that cool in the collector's world, you know what I'm saying? Everybody wants the Mitchells. But I liked them. I enjoyed these things. Let's see if I can get a little bit of oil in there. Just let it work in. Yeah. Won't hurt get a little bit of WD-40 on this reel anyway. You know. Did I say it was cold in here? It's probably 30 degrees in here, so my hands are just froze. So it's going to be a little clumsy looking. But you know something? I don't care. But this will go apart the same basic way as the other one did. A little bit bigger screws, so it'll be a little bit easier for me to work on. Oh, a little different. Oh, this is cool. A little more sophisticated, actually. Got all kinds of grease in it. I'm just going to dump some oil in there. That's all I'm going to do. Isn't that cool? So it's similar. Still has a plain bearing. This slides back and forth, so I could probably use a little bit of grease. It's actually pretty well greased, it's just cold. But I'm going to put some fresh grease in there anyway. So its clicker is a little different. It's a little different design. Still has that same big main gear. But instead of having a little gear drive at the bottom that moves a spool in and out, it's got this big old goofy thing here. Right? Isn't that cool? My guess is somebody had put petroleum jelly on this one. That's kind of what it looks like. And look at this one here. I got this at what we call the county store. It was at the landfill. And this is an evolution, so this is a little further along the evolutionary curve. And it also came with a rod, old fiberglass rod. And I think this rod's going to get put to use with that one we just finished greasing up. And since I just finished doing some terrible camera angles, how about this one right here? That's period, right? How about that? Two-piece rod. So we'll put that one into service for a little bit. But let me try one more time to get to the inside of one of these without my camera tipping over on me. And this again sat at the landfill for a while, so it's probably not in the best shape. But yet again, it has that same basic layout that both the prior Daiwas had, die-cast Daiwas. You know, I'm going to pull the spool off of this one too. Okay. And I am going to set some grease right in there. Let me get this all the way out. Get some grease on that. For now, just to get it running. Oh, actually, it's not like the other ones. This one you have to thread out. So this is an upgrade. But you can put it in both sides. So it's a different design. Okay, this one here is of the same layout as just the last one. It's got that big goofy thing right there, clicker right here. But this one here's got bearings. Look at that, there's bearings. Oh, look at that. So they got a pin that comes out. And that allows this to come off. And then the main gear comes out. But look at that. That's really cool. So it's really the same kind of layout. So let's put this back together. Okay, now this one here, it kind of captures, you got to get it on both sides of that that rod, and that sets down on this right here. It's actually a pretty tight fit. And then there's a pin that goes through all the way to the bottom. This thing is really cool, actually. That should set right back on there. You tell me if that's not cool. If you look right there, straight ahead, you'll see like a line.
Oh,
and then,
out there.
Yep.
I'm looking over here.
No.
Out there.
And see the shadow underneath?
I see them.
That's how you tell they're fish.